one of the things that I think they do well is that there are a lot of individual homeowners involved in programs, in spreading the news, in neighborhoods and so on and so forth. There's a lot of grassroots stuff that happens in BC that kind of uplifts the idea of what the individual can do towards sustainability and climate change within the context of their own home. I think if we can also grow that kind of feeling, that kind of way of looking at things across Canada, I think we'll also have more people that will look at their home and say, okay, what can I do here in my own personal space? What can I do to reduce my energy consumption, to reduce my carbon footprint? And that's kind of the individual piece that goes along with the kind of the macro level that we're talking about when we talk about subsidies, when we talk about how we think we can make this sustainable. The homeowner actually has a large role to play, and it'll be interesting to see how things evolve.
It's funny because I was on a call with a couple of important figures on the utility side in California, and they were saying the top 3 pattern of growth that they're seeing within the energy efficiency sector is one, the rise of electrification. So everything is becoming electrified. So if you are doing anything on the like having the chargers and electrical car, if you're in any business that is directly or indirectly associated to that seems to be the trend, and it's not going to stop. Like I think people are, we're at least in North America, I would say that we're very close. In the next 5 to 10 years, I don't think you're going to be seeing cars running on fossil fuels, or the numbers will be significantly lower. Tesla is producing 60,000 Model 3s per month in China, just to kind of put things in perspective through their mega factories. So that one, electrification. The second thing was they're saying that anything to do with water management, wastage, and purification. And I think and the pattern is that the water is at a scarcity and is at a shortage, and that's not going to change. Yeah. And the third kind of ties into your point, which is around education and awareness around behavioral change as it pertains to residential and commercial. And I think that's where we come in. And I think what we do is around the third point that is it's going to be at an all-time high. So
one of the interesting things, that one of the statistics that always stays in my mind is the fact that 40% of emissions come from buildings, come from commercial and institutional buildings. So if we're talking about how do you address a large segment of that, and of course I think you're probably already familiar also with the role that transportation plays, but let's stay in our lane. Let's kind of concentrate.
For now.
Yeah, for now. But yeah, so if we look specifically at the commercial and institutional building sectors and the role that we have to play there, I think one of the things that we reinforce a lot, and so do a lot of our instructors, is that concept that energy and energy efficiency. I mean, energy is really about people, obviously. Right. People consume the energy. The people run the buildings, and the people have the opportunity to control and manipulate and reduce energy and energy consumption in these buildings as we see fit. So of course technology is important. Of course, for instance, in the residential sector, of course Hot 2000 is important, but ultimately you need the individual that knows how to use Hot 2000 in order to produce an assessment that makes sense, and explain it in a way that gives the homeowner something that they can go forward with and something that they can really understand. So I think one of the things that we always have to recall also is it is about people, and so that's why the behavior change component is more important. I prefer the term energy engagement or engagement, because nobody likes the idea
changing hearts and minds.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. I think I've heard that before from the P90X guy.
Oh yeah, well,
Tony Horton.
Tony Horton. I used to love that guy.
Changing hearts and minds across this great country of ours.
P90X was huge. Did you do the level 2 P90? And then he came up with 2 and 3 and 4. And
the ones that I really love, I love the Ab Ripper. So the 1, 2, and 3.
Oh my God.
I honestly still do a lot of those.
You still do it?
I do it.
Oh my God. Like Tony, my man. You know what? It's funny that because there's a lot of transitional things need to happen in order for this industry to remain prosperous. And I think that kind of ties in to the concept of me being cautiously optimistic. One transition that needs to take place is going from it being rebate dependent for it to be viable and maybe driven by ratepayers instead of taxpayers when it comes to the utility entity. If the utility decide to take arms the same way they have in Enbridge on Enbridge in Ontario and FortisBC in BC.
What are you thinking, like an on bill kind of structure?
Yeah, on bill kind of structure, and building it to a business model where they deliver savings in terms of cubic matter gas, and they take those savings to Ontario Energy boards, and they get compensated for it in the format of tax credit. Mm-hmm. So it's a sustainable business model for the utility. So that transition has happened, and you know what I mean. That transition has happened. I believe I can talk about it in confidence in Ontario, where there's a shift from taxpayers to ratepayers. And I think that transition will also needs to happen, going from rebate dependent to regulatory enforced. So moving forward, homes has to be built to a certain standard, and we can be introduced as a compliance tier to ensure that those standards are being followed. And I think I'm seeing that happening. And I have no doubt that the standards are just going to get higher and higher. And there's going to be need for more people from our professions to be there to actually enforce the standards. The behavioral change is a tricky one. Because right now, the way the industry works is that it's really driven based on the contractors community. We do a fair bit of audits on an annual basis, and I would have to say 80% of that it's coming from the contractors communities. These are people that are selling heating and cooling, installations and doors and windows, and they're using this rebate mechanism as a tool to push their products. Yeah. And naturally, because there's rebates out there and the availability of the product, they're leaning towards more energy efficient, Energy Star products to make that happen. Now, and they have a skin in the game, and they want to do it. There's a rebate, and because of the rebate that is being produced, they can actually sell their products and increase their bottom line. Now, fast forward into the future, how would that change? Or because right now the contractor community does a lot of heavy liftings, and we have relationship with many of them, and they're actually on the driver's seat, and they're basically bringing the deals to us, and then we do the home energy audit and we facilitate the end-to-end process. Now we're going towards an industry in the futures where the homeowner, simply based on their level of knowledge from the communities and what's out there and their willingness to change and make an impact, making those conscientious choices. And combine that with only readily available Energy Star high energy performing products. Will they or will they not adopt it as quickly or as higher as what's happening right now that is being triggered and driven by the contractors?
So you see, what you just talked about there is interesting, because you're describing a state of affairs now where the impetus is on the contractors to get it all started, to bring a company like Canada Energy Audits in for the assessments, and also to make the homeowners interested in the programs and frankly aware of it a lot of the time, right?
100%.
Now we're talking about a different state of affairs where the homeowner would be bringing these things to the table. So maybe it's the homeowner that goes and seeks out the contractor and goes to seek out the service organization to conduct the home energy assessment. So let's think of the things that would be necessary in order to do that. One, they would have to have a higher level of understanding of energy efficiency and an interest in it, right? Which I think is absolutely achievable, but it's certainly going to require some attention. And then two, they would have to feel comfortable making an investment in those things. And if they can't make that investment directly, knowing that there's some mechanisms in place, either through their municipality or through their utility provider in order to do that, right? And then three, I would say that one of the big things that could push them towards that is if their neighbors have done it, if people they know have done it. You know, that kind of that positive word of mouth is a big thing. You know, it's the typical thing of, if I tell you a movie is good, you're more likely to go see it than if you hear nothing about it or if I tell you that it's bad. So I think those kind of three things would probably need to be in place in order to have the homeowner being that driving force.